Good afternoon. It is Wednesday, June 9th. It is 12:14 p.m., just afternoon, here in Oklahoma City. And I'm going to try to do a short video where I break down some of the math on the lease contracts to give people that aren't familiar with the industry or aren't familiar with the lease terms. They don't understand the expenses. I'm doing this video to try to break down in simplest terms that I can the lease contracts that these really shitty mega carriers try to get people to sign right after they get out of training. So at a lot of these training companies, as soon as you get out of training, like Stevens Transport, let's take Stevens Transport for example. As soon as you get out of training, they offer you to become an owner-operator. Just sign here and you can become an owner-operator. So those people that are being presented with that option, most of them have no idea what they're about to sign. So I'm going to try in this video to break it down in simplest terms what you're signing. So let's hop over to the spreadsheet. And I just threw this thing together in about 15 minutes. So there might be some inaccuracies. If I come across an inaccuracy while we're going through it, then I'll edit it. But let me explain what all of this is. So this row right here is a mega carrier contract, your flat rate dollar a mile contract. This is a Landstar contract, 65% contract. And this is an 85% contract signing up with a small carrier. So let me briefly explain these three contracts. So if you just went through training with some place like Stevens Transport, one of the shitty mega carriers, and they offer you to sign a lease, they're going to offer you a contract that is approximately $1 per mile plus fuel surcharge. And fuel surcharge is roughly 30 cents per mile. We're going to use 30 cents per mile for fuel surcharge with all of the contracts as a comparison. So the second contract here is an example of a Landstar style contract. Mercer, Landstar, USA Truck, Schneider, JB Hunt, all of them have 65% contracts where the carrier provides the trailer and pays for everything with the trailer. And they pay for a lot of the stuff. Like they pay for a lot of things. So this is that kind of standard contract. Now this third one is signing a lease contract with a small carrier, usually some no-name carrier. It's just like Joe Bob's Trucking, and you pay them a percentage to use their authority. The only services they really provide is factoring and use of their authority. They're not providing you with the trailer. They're not providing you with much of anything. Now, they may go out and lease a trailer for you and then take the payments out of your settlement, but they're not providing the trailer for you. They may act as a intermediary to get you a trailer, but they're not paying for it in any way. You're paying for the trailer, whether they're going out and leasing it for you or you're leasing it directly or you're buying it outright, however you're doing it. So this is a comparison between those three basic types of contracts to kind of give you an idea of what you're signing up for. And I try to break these down into very simple terms so that you can compare them against like being a company driver. So let's go through the mega carrier and let me explain what all of this is. So mileage. We're basing all of these examples off of a 2,500 mile week. A 2,500 mile week is a very normal work week in trucking. If somebody is trying to sell you on a lease on a 3,000 mile week, that is unrealistic. 3,000 mile weeks, it's not reasonable to average 3,000 miles a week unless you're on some kind of dedicated run. And we're not talking about the one-off weird shit. We're talking about average, just normal stuff. I'm trying to break this down into like average, normal things, not best or worst case scenarios. And the trucking industry is an incredibly diverse industry, so there are lots of one-offs. So we're basing everything on a 2,500 mile week. All three are on a 2,500 mile week. The line haul revenue, we're basing this off of a 2,500 mile load, a single load, paying 2,500, or that's 2,500 miles, and this is the rate that load's paying. So that load's paying, the full rate of the load is $8,750. This load is paying $3.50 per mile. So the rate per mile doesn't really matter for the mega carrier that's on a flat rate contract, but I went ahead and put the information in there Anyway, the mega carrier is still most likely getting close to that $8,750 on that load. Or they might be down here in the $7,000 range on the load. But, all right, let's go ahead and go past that. I'll explain it more in a minute. So $8,750 is what the load's paying. Actually, in this one, let's do $7,000. Because the mega carriers are most likely getting $7,000 on the load, not $8,750. $7,000 on the load, I believe, is $2.80 per mile. 2,500 times 2.8. Yes, $2.80 full rate per mile. So that is like a standard rate per mile on a big run like this. So this is how much the mega carrier is making on that load, is $7,000. Minus fuel surcharge. So this second number right here is line haul minus fuel surcharge, and we're doing fuel surcharge at 30 cents per mile. So 30 cents a mile at 2,500 miles comes out to $750, which is this column right here, fuel surcharge, $750. So basically, this column is just the full line haul rate minus what they're paying in fuel surcharge, $750. And then this column right here is the base rate. This is the rate that you're making on the load. Minus, this isn't including fuel surcharge. This is what you're making. So on this first mega carrier contract, where you're getting $1 a mile, it's just 2,500 times 1. You're getting 2,500 miles at $1 a mile, so you're getting $2,500 plus the fuel surcharge, which is 2,500 times 0.3 or 30 cents per mile, so $750. So you're getting 2,500 plus 750, which comes out to the total amount gross to the truck of $3,250. That's how much you're making per week. Gross to the truck is $3,250. What does that come out to on a rate per mile? Well, it's real easy to figure out with the very first example here, because you're getting $1 a mile plus 30 cents per mile fuel surcharge. So you're getting $1.30 a mile. To get this number, you divide the gross to the truck divided by the mileage over here, and we come out with 1.3, which math adds up. So now I'm going to go through and explain the other two, and then we'll explain all this green and red over here in a minute. So the second example here is an example of a Landstar contract. So we're doing the exact same load, 2,500 miles. Why in the hell is it paying $8,750 instead of $7,000? Well, Landstar is a premium carrier with a really good reputation, and they are able to negotiate better rates than most carriers. So the rates on the Landstar load board are better than what you can get on the spot market. Now, it is possible, and I know of people like Trucking Inside. It's a YouTube channel that I follow. I know people who claim to get Landstar like premium rates on the spot market. They're able to negotiate those premium rates. We're not talking about the one-offs. We're not talking about, the people that are like doing like way better than everybody else. I'm trying to put this in like average, normal, basic terms. So $8,750. That is a premium rate. That's $3.50 per mile. The rates for the other two, we're doing $2.80 per mile for them. So Landstar negotiates a premium rate, and then this is that rate minus fuel surcharge. And then this column right here, we're coming up with this number differently than we did. So in the mega carrier, it's just the mileage times $1. So it's $2,500. This is a percentage contract. So it's this $8,000, which is the full line haul minus fuel surcharge. So $8,000 times 65% or 0.65 comes out to $5,200. And then this is the fuel surcharge. We get 100% of the fuel surcharge. So we're taking the $5,200 plus 30 cents per mile fuel surcharge and adding that back in, and we come up with a full rate gross to the truck that you're going to make with Landstar of $5,950. And that $5,950 divided by the mileage, $2,500, comes out to $2.38 per mile. So you're making $2.38 per mile. That's total gross to the truck. That's what you're making off of a $3.50 a mile load, is $2.38 a mile. In this scenario, with this fuel surcharge and this mileage and everything. Now let's go down to the very last one, the 85% contract. We're doing it exactly the same way as Landstar, except you're not negotiating a premium rate. You're getting $2.80 a mile for this load, so you're getting $7,000 instead of $8,750. And instead of getting, so we're taking the fuel surcharge out of it, and this is the line haul rate minus fuel surcharge. And to get your 85%, we're taking this $6,250 and multiplying it times 85% or 0.85. So you're making $5,312.50 plus plus fuel surcharge, which comes out to $750. So the total, you're making a little bit more than the Landstar driver. You're making $6,062.50 gross to the truck. And that comes out to $2.42, almost $2.43 per mile. So as you can see, the amount of money that you make on like a Landstar 65% contract versus one of these 85% contracts is very similar, and it's mainly similar because of the rate per mile that you're able to get on the load. The total rate. Landstar, you typically are getting a really premium rate on the Landstar loads, whereas spot market loads, they pay pretty decent, but they don't. It's not easy to negotiate premium rates on those loads. It's possible, but not easy. So we're going with like average normal stuff here. So now let's break this down even further to try to explain what kind of money you're making. So let's flip all the way over to the other side right here and look at all this in the red. What are your fixed costs? So I'm basing this on $1,000 a week fixed costs. This is truck payment, ELD rental, ELD subscription, tax services, everything that you're paying on a weekly basis or monthly basis, and then breaking it down to a weekly basis. We're breaking down our fixed costs down to a weekly basis. And we're doing $1,000 a week for the Stevens Transport driver and for the Landstar driver. We have the same expenses. But for the driver that's on the 85% lease contract, they're going to have higher expenses. Those 85%, 90% lease contracts, basically all you're getting on that lease contract is factoring plus use of the motor carrier authority. And you're having to pay for everything else out of pocket. Now, some of them may go out and help you get, a trailer or something like that, but you're going to end up paying for it. So I think I'm very conservative in saying that they're going to spend $300 a week more than the Stevens Transport or the Landstar driver. I think they might spend $300 a week more in just higher insurance rates because they're a smaller carrier. Small carrier insurance rates are really, really high. And large carrier insurance rates are much lower. So we're being extremely conservative in the increased fixed weekly costs. So the next category right here are variable costs. And how did I come up with this? What this is 40 cents per mile for fuel cost and 11 cents per mile for maintenance and repairs. That's all it is. So it's 2,500 times 40 cents per mile, or times 0.4 for fuel, added to 0.11 times 2,500 for maintenance and repairs. And then total expenses is just adding these two columns together. So $2,275 a week in expenses for both the Landstar and the Stevens Transport driver, and $300 more, $2,575 a week more for the 85% contract driver. What does this break down to weekly and on a per mile basis? So how much is the Stevens Transport driver making per week? $975. And how do you come up with this $975 number? Well, you take the gross to the truck, the $3,250, and you subtract the total expenses of $2,275. And that's what we did to come up with how much each of these are making. So the Stevens Transport driver is making $975 a week. The Landstar driver is making $3,675 per week. And the 85% driver is making $3,487.50 per week. So Landstar is winning out in all of these. Even though they're getting 65% instead of 85%, if you're not able to negotiate premium rates, you're going to make considerably less on the total amount. So the percentage that you're making on a load doesn't matter unless you know what you're getting a percentage of. So what does this come down to in a rate per mile? So I'm breaking everything down to a rate per mile so that you can compare it against a company driver. So how much is the Stevens Transport driver making on a rate per mile basis after expenses? How much are they making at the end of the day, after all of their expenses for the truck are paid for? How much are they making? They're making 39 cents per mile. How much is a Landstar driver making? $1.47 a mile. And how much is the 85% driver making? $1.40 a mile. $1.39.5, $1.40 a mile. So the Landstar driver and the 85% driver are really close to making the same. And what does the expenses come out to? The expenses come out to 91 cents per mile for the Landstar driver and the Stevens Transport driver. And for the 85% driver, they come out to $1.03 per mile. So let's go ahead and break this down even further into daily and annual pay. So what does this $975 break down to in daily pay? It breaks down to $139 a day. So the Stevens Transport driver's making $139 a day. Landstar drivers making $525 a day, and the 85% drivers making $500 per day. On this week, basing it on a 7-day work week, this is how much they're profiting after expenses. $140 a day for Stevens Transport, $525 for Landstar, and $500 for the 85% working for the small carrier. Now, what does that come out to on an annual basis? So how did I come up with this? I came up with this on a 39-week basis. So 9 out of 12 months. You're working 9 out of 12 months of the year. How did I come up with that number? If you're working 9 out of 12 months in a year, you're basically just taking weekends off. So let's figure that out. There are 52 weeks in a year. Multiply that times 2 for 2, there's 2 days in a weekend. 52 times 2 is 104 days off per year. And what I'm basing the annual pay on is only taking 91 days a year off. So you're taking 91 days in a year off. That is extremely reasonable. That's taking a couple of days off here and there. That's taking a week off here and there. It may sound like a lot to only, to take 3 months a year off. But that is whenever you have the mentality of like your normal average work week at a non-trucking job. Whenever you're thinking in that mentality, then taking 3 months a year off sounds like a lot. And it is in that mentality because in a normal standard non-trucking job, you're already taking 3 months a year off, just taking weekends off. If you take another 3 months a year off on top of that, you're only working 6 months out of the year. So, let me try to wrap your mind around that. So, whenever I'm in this scenario talking about you're only working 274 days out of 365 days, you're taking 91 days a year off. That's how I'm coming up with these numbers. So, if you're working 264 or 274 days out of the year, then you multiply your daily rate times that, and you come up with how much you're making in 274 days. Now, this number doesn't really mean anything, and let me explain why in a minute. So, in Stevens Transport, you're making $38,000 a year. Landstar, you're making $144,000 a year. And in the 85% contract, you're making $136,000 a year. But then, here's the kicker, and this is the reason that number doesn't really mean anything, is that all of those days that you take off, you still have expenses. So we have to come in here and figure out what are your expenses per day. So your expenses per day with Landstar and Stevens Transport is just your fixed costs. It's not your variable costs, because if the truck's not moving, you're not paying for fuel, you're not paying for wear and tear, you're not paying for maintenance. All your fuel, maintenance, and repairs and everything are based on the truck moving. So it's just 1,000 divided by 7, and it comes out to $143, roughly $143 a day in expenses for Stevens Transport and Landstar, because you have the same expenses in those two, and then $186 a day for the 85% carrier. So for 91 days, the 91 days you're taking off, you have $13,000 in expenses for Stevens Transport and for Landstar. And for the 85% carrier, you have $16,000, almost $17,000, $17,000 in additional expenses. So let's come up with your true number that you're making per year. So how do I come up with these numbers down here? Well, I'm taking the amount of money you're making in the 274 days that you're working and subtracting the amount of money that you're spending in your 91 days off from that. And that's how I come up with this number down here, how much you make per year. So at Stevens Transport, as an owner-operator, you're making $25,000 per year. $25,165 per year. At Landstar, you're making $130,850 a year, roughly $131,000. And at the 85% carrier, you're making $119,610 per year, roughly $120,000. So there's very little difference between a good 65% company and an 85 or 90% company, because the 65% company is paying for the trailer and a lot of other back end stuff. And at some place like Landstar, you're also getting the benefit of really low insurance and premium rates. I based Landstar on $3.50 per mile. And let me flip you over to the Landstar load board and show you. This is my general search. I have a saved search that I use for whenever I'm looking for loads out of Oklahoma City. I live in Oklahoma City. Oklahoma City is not a very good market. So this is a 300-mile search around Oklahoma City. So it's picking up Oklahoma City, Dallas, Joplin, Missouri, Tulsa. Those are the main markets in this search. It's not going out as far as Kansas City or Springfield, I don't think. But you look through here, and my search only shows loads that are over $3.50 a mile and loads that are over $2,500. I don't care if a load's paying $15 a mile if it's only 10 miles. I'm not moving a load for $150. I don't care if it's only going 10 miles. It's not worth my time. So you look through here and 94 loads. Now there's not actually 94 loads because there's a bunch of duplicates on here. Some loads are posted like 5-6 times, but there is 10 to 20 loads easily within 300 miles of Oklahoma City that are paying over $3.50 a mile. Now this is the full rate. This is not how much I make. This is the full rate of the load. I get roughly 65% of that. I mean, there are loads on here paying $7.20. Well, no. This is a line haul dedicated run. That's make-believe bullshit. But 360, 370, 380, 390. Here's one leaving right out of Oklahoma City going to Jerome, Idaho. When I left my house last time, I pulled this load. This is a dedicated, or this isn't dedicated. This is a direct customer. This is a load that's posted on the load board 2 to 3 times a week, every week. And it's paying almost $4 a mile to go 1,300 miles up to Jerome, Idaho, Twin Falls, Idaho. I'll probably end up taking that load when I leave the house. So the point I'm making is that $3.50 a mile is really easy to do. I don't haul loads generally at $3.50 a mile. Most of the loads I haul are more than $4 a mile. They're, $3.90, $4 a mile, $5 a mile. The last load I hauled was almost $13 a mile. It was a 300-mile run that paid $4,000. I made $2,645 after all the percentage cuts. Total gross to the truck was $2,645 on a load that went 300 miles. I picked it up at 7 a.m. and I delivered it at 1 p.m. I think they had me unloaded by 2 p.m. So from like 7 a.m. to 2 p.m. was the entire time on Monday I was on that load. So it's fairly easy at Landstar to run over $3.50 a mile. So let's flip back over to the spreadsheet. This is the reason that I don't really plan on getting my own authority right now, is because the premium rates that you're getting on the Landstar loads are so much higher than normal spot market rates that once you factor in all of the additional expenses I would have with my own authority, like my insurance would probably be $1,000 a week or more on new authority. Anyway, that's a whole other video. Let's not get into that subject. I was starting to talking about why I don't plan on getting my own authority. But let's keep this video on just comparing the various lease contracts that you can sign as an owner-operator. These are just really basic comparisons to give you an idea of what you're getting into. So whenever Stevens Transport or CR England or Swift or CRST or Crete or any of these other shitty carriers that pay really terrible rates in their lease contracts, like I think Crete is one of the highest paying flat rate contracts, and they pay like $1.20 a mile plus fuel surcharge. And let's plug that number in here. There's very little difference. So there's $1.20. So instead of making $25,000 a year, you're making $45,000 a year. You're making considerably more with Crete, if I remember correctly, and they pay $1.20 a mile. But it's still, you're making like less than half if you were to go to a percentage contract. The percentage contracts pay much better. The only time that these flat rate contracts make any sense at all is when the freight market is bottomed out and the spot market is paying like $1 a mile. So, and that's the way that they come up with these flat rates. They come up with these numbers that they're going to pay you on these flat rate contracts. They pay you a rate where they're still profitable when the freight market is bad. So in a worst case scenario, lease to Landstar or one of these 85% companies, if the freight market completely tanks, then they will start making as much money as these flat rate mega carrier contracts. They'll start making like $1.50 a mile, $1.30 a mile with fuel surcharge. And it's really hard to stay in business making that kind of money, which is why it's absolutely idiotic to sign one of these mega carrier contracts that pay a flat rate mileage of like $1 a mile. These are absolutely horrendous contracts, and it's very, very hard to be successful in those contracts. And in my opinion, that's the reason we have so many disgruntled people in the industry that are so negative towards becoming an owner-operator and signing a lease with a company, is because these people signed really bad leases. Like whenever you become an owner-operator, you're becoming a business owner. And signing a lease contract is a business decision. If you are signing a bad contract, then you're making a bad business decision. You are a bad business owner. So we have a lot of people who became business owners. They were bad business owners. They signed bad contracts. They failed. They went back to company drivers, and now they talk very negatively about becoming an owner-operator and leasing onto a carrier because they didn't know what in the hell they were doing, and they just did everything wrong. So I'm trying to break this down into simplest terms to try to kind of give somebody, like whenever I can break it down into a rate per mile, like right here, we're looking at Crete, $1.20 a mile plus fuel surcharge. So your total rate per mile, $1.50 a mile. After expenses, you're making 59 cents per mile. Crete company drivers make 59 cents per mile. You can make 59 cents per mile as a company driver at Crete. These flat rate contracts that these mega carriers put out, they are win-win scenarios for the mega carrier, and they are lose-lose for the owner-operator. The mega carrier is still paying you almost the exact same amount that they pay their company drivers, but you are taking all of the risk. You're taking all the expenses, you're paying for all the fuel and everything, and at the end of the day, they're making the same amount of money off of you that they're actually making more money off of the lease drivers than they make off of the company drivers. they're making more money off of them because they're offloading all of the risk onto the lease drivers. So let's try and wrap the video up because I wanted to be as short as possible. In 34 minutes, 35 minutes, that's a short video for me. So anyway, I hope that this kind of puts it into perspective to give somebody that's unfamiliar with the industry a basic understanding of costs associated with, you know, being an owner operator, so that they can have some kind of idea about what they're going to make in whatever lease contract they decide to get into. And you can, you know, adjust the numbers on here. You know, let's play with some numbers here. Let's say that you're on a, let me just grab this. We'll copy that and let's paste it down in here. And let's play with some numbers on this. So, this is the Landstar. So let's change it to where instead of getting 65%, you're getting, let's look at a Prime. Prime pays what, 72%? So we changed it to 72%. I heard Prime has really, really shitty rates on their loads. They're not. So let's put the load at $7,000. Your shitty spot market price. And then let's go over here. Prime has ridiculous fixed costs. I know of someone that was in a Prime lease that was paying over $1,700 a week in fixed costs. But most people I know of that are in Prime leases are paying somewhere in the area of $1,200 to $1,300. So let's do $1,250 a week in fixed costs. All right, gross to the truck. Everything else should pretty much be the same. All right, so you're looking at $1.01 per mile. If you have $1,250 a week in fixed costs, then you're looking at your cost per mile is somewhere in the area of $1.01 per mile. So at Prime, if you're running 2,500 miles a week and you have $1,250 a week in fixed costs, then your costs are about $1.01 per mile. So what is your full rate per mile on this load? You're making $2.10 per mile minus $1.01 per mile. So you're making $1.09 per mile. You're making $2,725 a week. That is considerably better than these flat rate contracts with like Stevens Transport or CR England or whatever other shithole company. But it's also considerably less than the better places that you can lease onto, like Landstar or even these like 85-90% places where you just do loads off the spot market. You can make more money at those than at a place like Prime. And I've heard Prime actually has really, really, really cheap freight. I'm probably being very generous in saying that you can run at $2.80 per mile on the fuel rate, on the full rate at Prime. Let me just pause this for a second and look at Trucker Will's latest settlement video and see what kind of rate per mile he's getting. All right, so he doesn't list the cities and states that he's going in and out of. So I can't like look at an individual trip to figure out his rate per mile. But he does put his miles down here. These are only his loaded miles. And he puts the total amount of money he made, $9,000. So, let's figure this out. So 8921.7 divided by 4889. So he's making $1.82 per mile. That is after the percentage cuts. So he's making less than, they're doing less than $2.80 a mile. So let me math this out again. Let's see. 89, 21.7 divided by 48.89. And let me try to remember how to reverse this math. I think I divided by 0.72. There we go. So what he's getting at prime for the full rate of the load is $2.54 per mile. So let me show you in the spreadsheet how I come up with that. So right there we have 89, 21, 70. So let's put in here 89, 21, 70. And what's the next number we're dealing with? 4889. That's the number of miles. 4,889. And it's at the bottom of the video. That's where I'm getting these numbers. So now let's flip back over to the spreadsheet. So this is the total amount of revenue. Now, that sounds like a lot of money, but he's only making like $2,700 a week after all expenses. And the reason he has so much money per week is because he's a trainer. He's running a team truck. And so let me flip you back over the video. All right, let's flip back over to the video. And this is where he breaks down all of his expenses, where he has to pay his trainee $965 a week. Oh man, he's taking out taxes. So let's add in the tax money. So it'd be his $2,546.11. Who the hell talks about post-tax? That's ridiculous. Everybody's tax situation is different. Plus $1,091.19. So he's making $3,600 a week, $3,637 a week, running his truck as a team. He's a trainer, and he's basically getting two incomes from the truck because he's a trainer. So now let's flip back over to the spreadsheet and break down what he's making per mile. So 89.21, 49.88. So let's come up with the rate per mile that he's operating at equals sum of, it is I-26 divided by I-27, and we come up with $1.82 a mile. Now, to figure out what he's making on the full rate before percentage cuts, that equals sum of J26 divided by his percentage. He's getting 72%, so 0.72. And now we come up with $2.53, a little over $2.53. So what he's making per mile is $2.53 per mile. So let's make this a little more accurate. So 2,500 equals sum of A23 times J27. So he's getting considerably less than the $2.80 per mile that I was estimating. So this would more accurately reflect what a prime driver is making. So a solo prime driver is making somewhere around $1.90 per mile. $1.91 per mile after fuel surcharge. And they're not getting as good of a fuel surcharge as what I estimated them to be getting. They must be getting, oh, yeah. This is still a little bit higher than what they're actually getting. Because so, all right, there's a few more things that I need to do to get the exact number that they're getting. He's not even getting $2.53 per mile. He's getting less than that because his total amount of money he's making is including fuel surcharge. So I would have to go back and look at the video and figure out how much fuel surcharge he's getting and other things to figure out how much he's getting per mile. They're actually getting less than $2.53 a mile on the loads. That is really terrible in today's market. That is absolute dog shit in today's market. I don't even have words for how bad that is in today's market. Running loads for less than $2.50 a mile, that is atrocious. Like, that is absolutely horrendous in today's market. The load, like, there are tons of loads out there paying over $4 a mile. For somebody to be running at less than $2.50 a mile, that is so bad. That is so ridiculously bad. So, this Prime driver in this scenario, they're making approximately 90 cents per mile after expenses. And they're actually making less than that because he's making $1.82 a mile after, all the fuel surcharge and everything. So he's actually making about 8 to 10 cents per mile less than what I have right here. So, we're being very generous with Prime on these numbers. So $2,247 a week. Yeah, it's Prime is a better option than the shitty mega carriers that have the dollar per mile flat rate shit. They're almost twice as good. They're roughly twice as good. Prime is roughly twice as good as those terrible dollar per mile flat rate contracts. They're almost twice as good. Somewhere in the ballpark is twice as good. But they're still inferior to better lease carriers like Landstar. Landstar is the very top option I've found so far. And it's mainly because of their premium rates they have on their load board. The amount of money the loads pay is just really, really awesome. Like, let's go back and look at the load board. There we go. This is, the Oklahoma City, Joplin, Missouri, Dallas area. And we have all these loads. Let me pause this and switch this over to a premium market like the Los Angeles market and show you that. All right, so this is a 300-mile radius around Fontana, California. I haven't even looked at it yet. But here's one going from Santa Ana, California to Laredo, Texas, paying $6 a mile, 1,000 pounds of auto parts. $8,270. $3.90 a mile, 10,000 pounds, $7,800 going to from Carson, California to Oak Brook, Illinois. There's not actually as many loads. There's normally, let me explain something real quick. I'm really picky on the loads that I take, and what we're searching by right now are my standard search parameters, which are a minimum of $350 a mile, a minimum of $2,500, a maximum weight of 38,000 pounds, and no multi-stop loads and no hazmat loads. I don't like hauling hazmat because they don't really pay a premium for hazmat. And I don't like hauling heavy loads because they don't really pay a premium for heavy loads. But if I were to get rid of all of that, all of those limitations, there would be a lot of probably $10,000 loads on here. Let me pause it and do that. All right. I added in multi-stop loads, hazmat loads, and I bumped the max weight up to 45,000 pounds. What is this stupid crap we have right here going to Nampa, Idaho for $40,000? All right, let's look at the details on this. Let me pause this while I switch. All right, there's nothing in the details, so I'm 99.9% certain that this is a typo. There's one extra zero there. This load is paying $4,000, not $40,000. So here's a load going to Otsego, Michigan for 10 grand from Long Beach. $4.63 a mile, $3.91, $3.68, $6 a mile. We already talked about that load going to Laredo. Here's some $7 a mile loads going to Lacey, Washington from Fontana, California. 40,000 pounds. Gardenia, California to Chillicothe, Ohio, $3.56 a mile. 8 grand. And none of these are even multi-stop. Some of them are hazmat, and some of them are heavy. Landstar has a ton of hazmat loads on their board. Lots of hazmat loads. We already looked at that Lacey, Washington one paying $7 a mile. So I'm just showing you that, the board, when I say $350 a mile at Landstar, I'm being very conservative. I run loads that are typically much higher than $350 a mile, like $3.90 a mile, $4.50 a mile, $5 a mile or so. Like my last load was $12.80 a mile or something like that. Total rate per mile. I get like roughly 65% of that. That's not the, that's what I'm talking about. It's the full rate. So the last one I hauled was like $12.80 something. The one that I booked that ended up falling through was $5.54 a mile. The one I hauled before that was, I can't remember. It was $4 or $5 a mile. And the one before that was $3.97 a mile. It was that Jerome, Idaho load. Yeah, this is just a comparison between the various lease contracts to give you an idea of where everything stacks up and what you should expect. And this column right here, column K, is insanely important. Most people have absolutely no fucking idea what it costs them per mile to move the truck down the road. This is how much it costs to move the truck down the road. With these fixed costs and these variable costs, running this mileage, this is how much it costs to move the truck down the damn road. 90 cents to $1 a mile is incredibly normal. That's like really, really normal. Roughly if you have absolutely no idea how much it costs you to drive your truck per mile in expenses, then a really good ballpark estimate would be 95 cents per mile. You should, if you have no idea how much it costs you to move your truck down the road, then just a good general estimate would be 95 cents per mile is how much it costs you to drive the truck down the road. So whenever you're looking at a lease contract and they're going to pay you $1.30 a mile and it's going to cost you 95 cents a mile to drive the truck down the road, you're only making 35 cents a mile. Why the hell would you do that? It's bad. So anyway, I should wrap up this video before it gets too long. So thanks for watching. Have a good one. And I hope that this helped you out in some way. Bye.